Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangaistushtuvagum Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashravah Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedah Swasti na Starkshyo Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspati Dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let's chant the seventh mantra. Na antah pragyam, na bahish pragyam, na ubhayatah pragyam, na pragyana ghanam, na pragyam, na pragyam, adrishtam, avyavaharyam, agrahyam, alakshanam, achintyam, avyapadeshyam, ekatma pratyayasaram, Prapancha upashamam shantam shivam advaitam chaturtham manyante sa atma sa vigneyaha. So this is an important mantra to understand everything about yourself. This is your biography, as you should know. And biography is not just the way you look at yourself in this life, but your entire being. Who were you before you came to this life? What's going to happen to you presumably after this life? All those kinds of things. A complete biography. So this mantra provides that. So it's interesting that in Vedanta Shastra, there is an ability to define the truth about yourself in various ways, and it can be done in a very short, poignant way, or it can be expanded. But the core of the understanding remains the same. So as an example, look at the word Om. We're all very familiar with it, Om. Om represents the truth about yourself. So Om can be your name, or it could be Ishvara's name, and the two are really the same. And so Om says that, again, it's very important to see the three facets of our life every day in the 24 hours. So, A, U, Ma are the three constituents of Om. And so they represent the Jagrat Avastha, the Sushupti, the Swapna Avastha, and Sushupti Avastha. Waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state. So three states is what A, U, Ma, Om represents. And the silence after the Om represents the Turiya. So what it means is that the ucharanam, the pronunciation, the articulation of the word Om represents your experiences, totality of your experiences. And it rests in you, the jnanam, the consciousness, as we say in the West. In you, the very jnanam. I know, satyam jnanam anantam. So that is you. And so the Om is in you. And the you, Tvam, the Atma, remains the same, but the articulation of Om represents the three states of experiences. So in some ways, this is what I was saying earlier, that in Shastra, the truth about yourself can be depicted in many different ways. And the shortest and the most poignant of that is the word Om. And if we don't understand what the Om really means, just the articulation of that is a blessing. But if you do know the meaning of it, it is much more significant. In a very similar way, I was thinking, this seventh mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad, the Mandukya Upanishad is also a very, very significant Upanishad. Why? Because it directly explains Om. Because it directly talks about the three states of our experiences on a daily basis and the basis on which all these three states appear. It explains that. It has a full description, full definition of who we are as a person. And so that's the Mandukya Upanishad. And in the Mandukya Upanishad itself, the seventh mantra epitomizes everything that is being talked about in the Mandukya. Because the first mantra, and the second, and the third, and the fourth were all building blocks, if you may, of what is the waking state consists of. How does it happen? Similarly, on the various other states, this talks about it. But in the seventh mantra, it puts it all together and completely defines you. So this is an important mantra. It's kind of an explanation of Om, if you may. So I was thinking, I've been taught this very well, and I've thought about it and so on, that if you look at how this whole cosmos is, the very nature of the cosmos. I was thinking one way to look at it is, if you were the creator of the cosmos, as Ishvara is, if you were to be that designer of how do we make this cosmos, the whole jagat, how will you do it? What are the constituents of it? Well, the very basic constituent of the jagat is ananda, is joy. It has to be. Because there's no point in constructing something which is completely inert. So the inert things that we have, tables, chairs, and so on, are simply instruments. They are not the reality of who we are. We know that. So the basics of the whole thing has to be Ananda, is joy. And so the result is Ananda, the beginning is Ananda. Everything is nothing but joy, joy, joy. Okay, all right. So let's go. If we were to construct this this cosmos, how will we do it? This is the topic. So you'll begin with Ananda, and you'll end with Ananda. Okay, all right. And that means that there is no variation, no expression, no play, no make-believe, nothing. It's just, and this is exactly what we have. We have every night we have Ananda, and every pralaya is Ananda, complete Ananda for 50 million years. Brahmaji, when he sleeps, everything is just nothing but Ananda. And then we wake up. And when we wake up, it's an interesting play. So just think about it. This is how the creation is made by Ishvara. And this is how, if you and I were to construct it, if you have to develop it, this is how we will do it. Really. So what does that mean? It means that when you wake up from the Ananda, you now have the following possibilities. So, as a person who woke up is nothing but Ananda. But then you construct a series of experiences that you are now watching. And so if you were to construct this, you'll have to come out with some way of constructing your instruments of seeing, touching, feeling, etc., etc., the mind, the whole thing. You have to see how that would all play out. Okay. Now, when you look at things apart from you, you look at it as something apart from you, then that provides a certain level of confusion. And if you understand the confusion, your Ananda is not disturbed. But if you are confused, if you are not certain about what is going on, there is a possibility that you superimpose upon yourself a sense of non-Ananda, of dukkha, problems. That's a possibility. Okay? Now that possibility, this is the beauty about the whole creation, that possibility of superimposing dukkha on yourself is false, and it is temporary. So your basis is Ananda, beginning is Ananda, and your ending is also Ananda. In between there is a plot that you can look at. And all it is that if you look upon the world as a projection, then you can be confused about it because you don't understand that your whole nature is Ananda. That one you don't understand. So you're looking, where do I find my joy? So in the process of doing that, you sanction a level of reality and truth to the world that it is not there. That creates all the problems. So in a way, something like, if I were to come up with a story of a movie. So this is like it's a huge movie, really. It is. Three-dimensional movie, multi-dimensional movie. So if you were to construct a small movie, there's a couple of ways to do that. One is that during the plot of the movie, you have fun. Something good is going on, everything is fine, and so on. But it ends in tragedy. The ending is tragic. Dukkha. Whoever you were having fun with, there's some accident, something dies, and you walk out with, so this is Shakespeare's. I mean, I'm not a scholar. I haven't really read any of the Shakespeare's, but there is the comedy of the Shakespearean plays, and they're tragic Shakespearean plays. And so life could be where you're having fun for the time being, but it ends in tragedy. Would any real person do this? Why would anybody do that? And Ishvara doesn't. So in Ishvara's creation, so-called creation, if you think about things other than yourself as being real, and you forget about yourself, you have a certain possibility of dukkha and problems. But the comedy is that you were never apart from who you were. And once you understand that this is just a temporary play, there is sukha, there is ananda again. So it all ends in comedy. This is what life is all about. It's a very beautiful creation, really, when you think about it. But in the meantime, we have inquiries going on, and how does it happen, and why am I having problems, and what is life all about? All those kinds of things are there as subplots. But it doesn't disturb the very reality of who you are if you were to look into that. This is the background of the whole creation. And the seventh mantra then explains this in very, very structured, logical manner. That's all it does. And what do we mean by structured, logical manner? So it says, listen, as we were saying earlier in the last couple of 3 or 4 classes, you're seeking a different experience from the one that you are already undergoing is not going to yield what you really want, which is a total fulfillment, which is a total independence. That's what you want. And you're looking for it because you've already rejected what you're seeing as being unacceptable. I don't want this. My life as it is not what I want. I want something better than that. So you're looking for something different. So that is the 4th state, the turiya. So there it is said, my gosh, you're making a mistake. Please understand this. That it is not seeking, there is no 4th state. No 4th state of experience. There is no such thing as that. It is only the 3 states and the fact that those were temporary states of experiences. States of experiences means they're like a movie. But the underlying person remains the same. This is what we have to understand. This is what the 7th mantra is pointing out in different ways. And so let's get into that to see exactly what the explanation of this phenomena is. So there, in following the Upadesha of Swami Akhandananda, as he's unfolding this, my gosh, the 7th mantra, I don't know, I'm just guessing, I was just looking at it, consists of something like 30 to 40 pages, even more than that, maybe 50 pages on the seventh mantra in very closely spaced Hindi. Just look at this. This is how the book is written. I have to wear my glasses to wear this. This is that small, and it's very voluminous. There's a lot to explain on this. And what I would need to do is to really summarize this, because otherwise we'll just go on for so long that you may lose interest. And so I have to now summarize it now that we're doing it only once a week. So in doing so, Swami Khandananda points out various aspects of this that we have to look at. The most important thing he says is that what you see is not real. It is an appearance. So what you are seeing, any experience that you are having, is not real. The very nature of seeing is you are seeing non-reality. Non-reality means various ways to define non-reality. So the quickest way to see non-reality is a change. Something that change cannot be real. Right? I've given this example. It just occurred to me on my own, and that if you were to look at the carpet, you're sitting on my feet are resting on the carpet. This room is carpeted. All of a sudden, as you are seeing the carpet, it starts to melt and then evaporates. And then guess what? After evaporation and melting, it comes back again to the same thing. So there's a change. Will that not confuse you? What is this? If you were to design something that has all those three things, then it'll be okay. But suppose you confront something which is completely changing, then that is not reality. There is some inquiry has to be made. What is happening? Is it carpet the real state and the melting of it into a liquid an imposed state? Or is it the other way around? Like water, for example. That's a good example. So what is the reality of the water? Reality of the water is that it is at room temperature, as the normal temperature. It is a liquid, fluid liquid. But if you were to lower the temperature, it can be frozen. It looks like ice, snow. And if you were to raise the temperature, it can just evaporate. But the evaporation also is coming back again. Oh, interestingly enough, I was just reading something. I didn't, it's something you don't connect those two things together until somebody points this out, just on this evaporation of the water that reminded me of it. I was just reading an article which said, we've had an unusual amount of flooding all around the world. Unusual. I've been watching it, and it's not just in one country. It's in the US. So many cities have been flooded. India flooding, Europe, everywhere. And what somebody pointed out was, which I should have really, you probably already know this, It is because of global warming. Why? Because of the global warming, we have much more evaporation of the seawater that goes and becomes cloud, much more than before, and eventually it has to come down. So really the hot weather in the summer and the flooding after the summer is over is nothing but global warming. That our ozone layer is getting depleted, and we're having a very serious problem, really. And because of the fact that we don't seem to agree, we don't have any agreement on how to do this. So I think Swami Chinmananji had given this very beautiful example one time. So he said that both the devatas, and asuras, the rakshasas, the good people and the bad people, there's actually people born who are naturally good, and there are people born who have a tendency to be criminal in the way they think. This is how people are. This is what the karma phala is. So anyway, both sets of people approached, I think it was Vishnu, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember all the mythological aspects of this, and were praying to Vishnu for amritam, for a nectar that will make them deathless. So this is a story to both of them. And so Vishnu was pleased at their prayers and gave them nectar to both of them and said, please share it with others. You just take a little bit, because if you have a amritam, all you need is a speck and you become free from change and death. And so you don't need to swallow the whole thing. Just take a little bit and then give it to everybody else. This is what he said. Please share it. So they gave it to the main person, like Indra, who is the Devata, the leader of the Devata. And I don't remember the name of the Asura Devata. And they gave it to them. Now, here's where the problem came in. They did not want to share. The Asuras didn't want to share. They don't believe that a speck is necessary. I want to have the whole thing, just to be sure that I'm Amrita. The Devatas all had Shraddha in Vishnu and said, if he said it, then we need to share it. And how do we share it? It's in the hand, in a cup in a hand. So Devatas figured out, you don't bend your elbow to eat it yourself. You give it to somebody else like this, to have them drink it, and that person gives the amritam to you, and you both share it, and you're okay. The Rakshasas, the Asuras, don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. So, and they cannot bend the elbow. This was part of the whole thing. I'm not giving you the whole thing. Anyway, they are not really cooperating. So, going back to the issue of the climate change, this is our problem, is that we are not really, we said, why should we do this? The Indians feel that, the West has not developed, and now we're also going to have a lot of development with coal-fired things. Why should we stop now? And the West this is interesting. The underdeveloped countries say, okay, at least give us the technology. We'll try to minimize global warming. The West says, why should we give that to you? So we are all suffering because of the non-sharing aspect of it. And the global warming is taking place. Anyway, that was just on the side. So the nature of the Vastu is such that if it changes, it is not real. It is not real. And so what you are seeing, whatever experiences you have in your life is changing. This is very obvious. Nothing stays still. In fact, we will go into that. This is the problem that we have. We want to hang on to it as though it is non-changing, but it is changing. What can we do about it? So, drishya, whatever you are seeing, is not true. Is not true. Because, why can it be true? Because it is changing. So look at the logic of this. We have to really apply that in our own thinking. That what changes cannot be the truth. There's something behind it. And we keep looking at it. This is the thing. We're looking at the cause of what is. Supposing we were to find out what the cause is, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Supposing you find what the cause is. So how is that going to help you? Just last night my wife and I had gone to a Diwali party, I think the third one in the last 1 month. So many Diwali parties, and we probably have refused a couple of them. It's nice, everybody is having fun. The same issue. People somehow they kind of know that I've been teaching Vedanta and I'm inclined to be thinking like this and so on. So when they approach me, they will ask some questions. So one friend of mine just asked, he says, tell me, what does Vedanta think about the Big Bang beginning of the earth, of the whole cosmos? When did it happen? And how does it explain? How do you guys explain it? So, in a short amount of time, how are you going to explain all this? And so all you have to say is that, we have our own way of looking at it, because either it manifests or it does not manifest, but it remains the same. And so he's saying that there is no Big Bang. So there is no such thing as the way it is constructed, there is no Big Bang. But the very manifestation can be looked upon. And in some ways, the beginning of the day, you're sleeping and there's nothing going on. Not even a dream, let's say. And then all of a sudden, let's say the alarm rings and you wake up. Isn't there some kind of an explosion of sounds and forms and activity in your mind? And is it that not some kind of an explosion? It's a minor explosion. So the Big Bang is also nothing but a manifestation. I didn't spend that much time with them, but this is exactly how it is. Anyway, going back to it, what Swami Akhandananda says is that the basis of your thinking should be that whatever you are seeing is not real. It's not real. So then the question is, if it is not real, if you say it is not real, where is the reality? Is it possible that there is no reality anywhere? We have to explore that question, and we'll do that in a minute. But if you look at the non-reality, it comes in three flavors. Okay, we already know this, but just in the context of this. So one is called subjective reality, one is called objective reality, and the third one is called absolute reality. Pratibhasika Sat, Vyavaharika Sat, and Paramarthika Sat. We've seen this before. So in the context of this, Pratibhasika Sat means it is something very personal, not shared by anybody else. And so in this example, it is important to see the dream is the best example of Pratibhasika Sat. You ask somebody, so how did you dream? He says, oh, I had a nightmare. My gosh. Or you can say, I had a very pleasant dream. Whatever it is, it's a personal thing, not shared by anybody. And so this is one. Then the second one is the Jagrat Avastha, which is a waking state, where we all share the same reality. Table is a table. If you're sitting there, you also touch it, and I also touch it, and we say, yeah, this is a table. This is the objective reality. Okay? And in the example of the rope and the snake, here the snake is the subjective reality. The rope is the objective reality. Everybody touches and says, yeah, this is rope. That is what really created a problem for you. And it is not a problem. It is just a simple rope, just sitting there with a bend which looked like a snake. That's all. This is objective reality. But then there's a third one, which is called absolute reality. So what that means is, even the objective reality is not the final word. Just because people all look at it and agree, yes, this is a table, that's not what it really is. Even in the realm of science, for example, there is no such thing as a table. Why not? Because if you were to really analyze the contents of this table with the right kind of instruments, with microscopes and so on, and even microscope only goes up to the molecular level. Okay, but if you were to break down the molecules into atoms, and even break down the atoms into subatomic particles, all of that, you need the right instruments. But really speaking, the fact of this table is that there is no solidity in it. Yeah, that's a fact. So the solidity comes in. If your hand touches, the table is 99.99999% space. And the hand is also 99.99999% space. So if that is the case, how is it that it is blocking? How is it that I cannot go through it? The reason is magnetic forces. There are magnets inside those molecules that repel each other. It is not the space. So there is something very funny going on about the constituents of the table. This is such an amazing creation. So another aspect of, I'm just thinking of it, is that it looks like you and I are just sitting down. Like if I ask you, are you moving? So you'll say, no, I'm not moving. I'm just watching you. And I'm also just not moving at this point, just looking at the camera. This is not a fact. If you knew what your speed of movement is, it will blow your mind. It is not just the circulation of the earth, because the earth is also moving very fast. But the galaxy is moving so fast. That is not the reality. That the non-movement is not the reality. It appears like we are not moving. Just like it appears it's a very solid object. So even from a scientific standpoint, the Paramarthika Sat is different. This is just Vyavaharika Sat. At least, in order to have a waking state, you need to have some convention. This is what it is. It's Ishvara's convention. They'll say, okay, let us make the molecules of something like this where it can be carved into a table. And then it can be used by everybody else. You have the same chairs, tables, walls, paint, etc. These are conventions. It's just like a plot in the movie, that's all. You also behave like this, I also behave like this, and we go on. But this is not the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is something different. Now, if you understand all of this, then there is no problem. But the issue comes in if you understand what you are seeing to be real, not understanding yourself to be real, then dukkha comes in. Why? Because you want to hang on to things. That is your nature. Your nature is that your nature is stability. Atma is stability, non-movement, sameness. To security, to be secure. To be changing is not security. That is the nature. So anytime you take yourself to be superimposed on non-reality, there is dukkha. This is how it is. So now, this is a process. This is how the manifestation of life works. How does it work? That there are two things. One is a non-changing basis of change as Atma, as the very seer. And the other one is seen, which is changing. This is how it is. And not understanding this distinction creates problems. So this is given, for example, very nicely done, very significant verse. The very first verse of Drikdrishya Viveka. Rupam drishyam lochanam drik tat drishyam driktu manasam drishyaha dhivrittaya sakshi drigeva natu drishyate. There is so much in this verse. I remember Swami Dayanandji had taken Drikdrishya Viveka in the Santa Cruz University of California Santa Cruz campus. probably in 1978, I would think so. Yeah, 77 or 78. And I was very happy to attend this entire 1 week of Drikdishya Viveka. And I remember those days we used to have cassette tapes. And so when they were recorded, I asked for the cassettes. And I don't know how many times I must have played that in my car. We used to have cassette tapes in the car at that time. So anytime you were traveling, I would put the cassette tapes on. And on Drikdrishya Viveka. And this verse really was very striking to me. But I still, just looking at it, I didn't quite understand all aspects of it as I do now. It's a very significant verse. Let me explain a little bit of that. So here's what it says. It says there is a process of manifestation. The process is there is a form which is seen, and the seer is your eyes. And the distinction is that the forms keep changing, but the eye remains the same. Because if the seer also changes, then you do not have this phenomena. The seer has to be the same, and the seen has to be different. And this is what happens. So you have the same eye, which works in distinguishing the various forms that you see. So now we have this phenomena. Okay, are we done? No, we're not done. Why? Because then he says, so rupam, drishyam, lochanam. Lochanam means the eye. Rupam means the seen. Rupam, drishyam, forms. Rupam means form. Rupam, drishyam, lochanam, drik. The eye is the seer. Are we finished? No. We have to go on. Tad drishyam driktu manasam. Tad means lochanam drishyam. The eye, which was the seer, itself becomes the seen. And the seer of the eye becomes the mind. How? Because you say, my eyes are, I'm not seeing as well as I did before. I have some kind of I'm not, it's not as sharp. I can't see, there's something problem. This is what happens with me. I have all these operations and cataracts and all those kinds of things. Because the eye also slowly deteriorates. So it is fixed for a while, but over time that also is deteriorating. So that means that the eye is not the original drik. You see, if it is the real drik, it will not change. So what is it? It borrows the power of the drik for its function. It is really a reflection of the reality, not the real reality. This is what it means. And whenever you have a reflection, that can change. Like, for example, supposing you're standing on the edge of a body of water, and your reflection in the body of water looks very stable and real. But if the water starts to become windy, if there is windy and the water also becomes wavy, you are also changing. And then if it goes goes away, then your reflection remains stable again. So in any way, the reflection of something can change. So it's very clear that even though the eye has the ability to be stable with respect to many forms, but by itself it changes. Okay, let's go on then. So then the mind becomes the seer. Why? Because the mind says, my eyes are not looking very good. I think that we need to we have to see a doctor. This is the mind. This is the mind saying. Is the mind now the final seer? In fact, this is our problem. We think that the mind is me. And it looks like I'm making the judgments on things and so on. That's me. It's not you. Not yet. If it is properly understood, then it is in fact your aspect, but it is not the real you. Why not? Because the mind also keeps changing. Because if it was the real seer, it would not change. But it does. It keeps on changing. How does it change? I really want this. So you have a desire in the mind. Oh, I'm disappointed. I don't want that. That's not what I wanted to see. Disappointment. Same mind. I wish I could get that. Greed. Satisfaction. All these kinds of variations. Anger. Happiness. Unhappiness. All of that is the mind. And in this explanation, Swami Akhandananda actually, so here in the verse, as you say, as we said, is only 1, 2, 3, 4 levels, right? Rupam, Drishyam, Lochanam, Drik. So Rupam is one level, Lochanam is another level. Then Tad Drishyam, Driktu Manasam. Then the Manaha, the mind becomes the third one. And Tadrishyam Dhivrittaya Sakshi. So then the Sakshi, Drigevanatu Drishyate, which is the Atma, which is the fourth level, which we will come to that in a minute. But here in Akhandananda's explanation, he introduces Buddhi as another one, which is okay because this was just one verse, but doesn't mean that it's a complete explanation. It gives a sample. So now Buddhi comes in. Buddhi means what? How is that different from the mind? This is good, this is bad. This is small, this is big. So, so for example, the stars look very small, even though they are 1,000,000 times larger than you and I. And so the mind, the Buddhi is the one that can distinguish, oh, it is small because it is far away. And how far it is exactly measured by how small it looks. All that calculation is Buddhi. This is west, this is east, this is up, this is down, this is now, it used to be, this is the future. All this is done by the Buddhi. What is the cause? Why did this thing happen? What is going to happen next? Signs, explanation, all of that is through Buddhi. So now we were to look into the Paramarthika Sat. So we looked at the Pratibhasika Sat and we looked at Vyavaharika Sat, the objective and subjective, subjective and objective reality. And so the feature of subjectivity and objectivity as distinct from the real reality is their ability to take on different forms by themselves. So clearly what it means is that both subjective and objective reality are reflections, right? Because something which is stable in one aspect is unstable in different aspect. My reflection in a calm water is stable. The same reflection in a disturbed water is unstable. So that just means it's a reflection, it's not the real thing. So what it really means is that all these things, the instruments, the eyes, the mind, the buddhi also is my reflection. Reflection of what? So this is what the first verse says. Drishyaha dhivrittaya sakshi drigeva natu drishyate. This is very significant. Drig eva natu drishyate. So he says, Atma, the sakshi, is different from all the reflections because it never changes to become a drishya. It is always a drik alone. Drik means the seer alone, never becomes a seen. All the other ones can be either a seer or a seen. Could be either one of them. But finally, as they say, the buck stops with the Atma. This is the reality that in fact, you cannot have change without the basis of no change. You cannot have any changes. See, this is something very profound. So if you look at that, this is exactly what we've been discussing, the adhisthana. That you can, and the same thing as we were talking about, pratibodha viditam matam amritatvam hi vindate. Kenopanishad. So what it means is, the very existence of the Jagat, and the existence of the Jagat means all the changes that are going on, all the experiences, continuous change. Marvelous how it just flows, cannot be perceived without a non-changing basis. Cannot be done. And it's a miracle that even at the transactional level, there is a semblance of stability to decipher things. This is what it means, rupam drishyam lochanam drik. So the lochanam, the eye, itself is changing over time. But for the time being, it is stable enough to be able to have the ability to distinguish the various forms singularly. You see? The singularity is relative. The mind also acts singularly very well. Why? Because there are various inputs coming to me in various forms, either through, so for example, we talked about the subjective reality and the objective reality. Remember, we talked about the dream and the waking state. Take for example, I should really have that because we have it in another room. Supposing you get some flowers. It happens all the time. You go to some place and you say, "Oh, wow. It just happened a couple of days ago. My wife and I were just there, and she has a very good eye for this." And she was talking to, I know we went to this restaurant, Il Forneo in Palo Alto. And so we walked in, we had some friends that were coming over. And my wife, Pami, looked at the flower arrangements and told this woman who was receiving us, "Wow, this is very beautiful flower arrangements. Wow, lovely." So she says, "Madam, they are all fake." I could not tell whether they were real or not, and neither could Pami. They were so real. That happens all the time. Their restaurants now cannot afford to have real flowers, so they have fake ones. So now the role of the mind is this. Supposing the eye says this is real, this is very beautiful, beautiful flowers. Then the mind says to the hand, "Can you go touch it to see if it is real or not?" If you're not interested in understanding whether reality or not, then you don't have to do anything. You just walk away and he says, "Oh, that was nice, wonderful." But supposing you say, "I wonder if these flowers are real or not," then the mind says, "Go touch it." When you touch it, you can immediately tell this is fake. This is fake. So it is the same mind which is stable enough to be able to make a judgment on something which is fake or not. Stable. Buddhi is the same one. In our case, the buddhi is so interesting because we are all, and unless we have some kind of a medical problem where we cannot think, like you have autistic people that cannot really think properly, or you have schizophrenia, something like that, some disease. But all normal people are endowed with buddhi. Yes, this is west, this is east, this is past, this is future, this is good, this is bad. All those distinguishing the buddhi can do. So is the buddhi the final? No, not even the buddhi. So look at it this way. What the buddhi does actually is to establish your limited nature of you. See, this is kind of like one of the issues where I feel that I know what am I doing, everything is so on and so forth. And from the standpoint of what is called parichinnatvam, which means the sense of limitation. I'm just a jiva, I'm a person. The buddhi is very important because you feel that I know, I can understand things, I can see things, I can reason. And even though the body keeps changing, my buddhi remains the same. So the buddhi must be me. This is the conclusion. No, it isn't. How can you say that? How can you say that? So this is where the next level of analysis comes in. Look at the three states of consciousness: waking, dream, sleep. We said earlier, your question is, why can't I say that this is my buddhi and this is me? The reason is that, remember the definition of reality and truth, Sat Swarupam. What is the definition? It should not change. Should not change, right? Anything, whether we understand where it is or so on, let's at least define reality. And it's the obvious reality that something that doesn't change is real, and something that changes is false. Like, you ask somebody, what did you do yesterday? And some person said, oh, I was staying at home. I didn't do anything. I didn't go out. I didn't even get into the car. Okay. Then you overhear somebody else ask somebody, hey, what did you do yesterday? And he said, I sneaked out in a car and I went to San Francisco and I did some shopping. You're saying, wait a second. A minute ago, this person said that I am staying at home, and now he's saying that he went to San Francisco yesterday for shopping. That's not the truth. It keeps changing. It's false. So similarly, the buddhi must remain the same for it to be truth. Does it remain the same? No. Why not? Because the buddhi, as you define it as the ability to reason, to know, and so on, is only there for 1/3 of the time, maybe 1/2 at the most, if you don't sleep that much. It should be there for all of them. But it isn't. When you can say, but I was just dreaming. That's my reality, is that this is the reality, and I was dreaming, and that doesn't really change anything. Buddhi remains the same. Cannot say that. Cannot say that because the dream state is not an extension of the waking state. It is in lieu of it is replacement. This is what we have to really understand. This is the basis of the thinking of Vedanta, of the Shastra. Please do not accept that you, the Vishwa, the waker, the person, is the final answer. They're also exactly like this, Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik. So in fact, I'm sure there are verses who says that even the waking state also uses the buddhi as though this is the real. But when you move over to the dream state, you find that it is not the original buddhi that you had. If it was real, it would stay. Doesn't stay. Doesn't stay. It goes on to something else. You have a different buddhi altogether. It's interesting. You can. I would suggest to you that as you begin to understand the basics of Vedanta, start to pay, and this is what Swami Akhandananda also has been saying, and I've been saying that also to you, start to pay more attention to the dream state. Again, not the content of the dream, that's not what we want. but become very sensitive to, instead of ignoring it and saying, oh, the waking state is the real state, my dream state is just something I did, has nothing to do with me. That's not true. Pay more attention to the transition. And if you were to wake up close to a dream, retain that experience for a while and see, my God, which one is real? I'm not sure. What I just had, this experience that seemed so real, had nothing to do with my waking state. And then you wake up, and of course the dream becomes, it just goes away. And as the Karika will say much more later because there's going to be so much discussion. If we have time, we'll of course come to it. Already this is really the Agama Prakaranam is the crux of it. The other ones is simply a explanation of it. But in the explanation, it would say that don't fool yourself into thinking that my waking state is the reality and my dream state is not. This is not true. The fact of the matter is, neither of them are true. And you are the very one that is going between all these states. This is obvious. This is what we're studying. But my point is this, that as you begin to become more aware of these changes, utilize your experience on dream very carefully. I would even say, which is, I've also been doing that if you were to, for example, wake up from a dream while it is fresh, stay on it and think about it. My God, it just seemed very real to me. Oh yeah, so that was the other point that I was going to make, and I think probably that's all I'll be able to do today. The reason that the waking state seems more real than the dream state is because you have the same storyline repeated many, many times. Because in Ishvara's creation, Vyavaharika Sat is necessary. If everybody's life is completely their own with no commonality, they won't have this creation. So it is necessary for a table to be there as a common element for people to look at. So for that reason, see, look at this, the beauty of this logic. This is all from the Karika. For that reason, the Jagrat Avastha has to have repetition. Same thing. And so, that is the reason for the Jagrat Avastha appearing to be more real. Why? Because you have the same people that you had yesterday. So there is a lot of repetition. So the memory becomes much more sensitive to the apparent reality of the waking state. Whereas in the dream, the very nature of the dream is that every dream is different. There may be some common themes, and all of them have it. I also have some common themes. So, but they're all very different from each other. And so there's no repetition, so it doesn't look real. You ignore it after the dream and he says, oh, that was nothing. But it's true, a student of Vedanta cannot be fooled into that logic because it says even buddhi is temporary. It is a reflection, it is not the real. The real one is turiya, which is common between all of them. So this is the logic that the seventh mantra follows, and we will continue to do that. And I will follow all those in a summarized fashion, the various aspects of this explanation by Swami Akhandananda, which goes into a lot of depth about experiences of life, our attitudes, all as part of explaining the seventh mantra. So it's not just saying, okay, it is just antapragyam, bahishpragyam, etc., etc. Let's go on to the next one. No. You have to really understand what the implications of this is in defining the reality about yourself, which is what the seventh mantra is all about. Saha Atma Savigyeha. Saha Atma means that is who you are, and that needs to be known, as it says. So with that, I'll close the class today, and we will see it next Saturday. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormaham Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnad Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. I will follow all those in a summer. So, Maithili, your question first about the Bindu representing the Om. I'm not sure of that actually, and the pratika, which is the way of writing that, I'm not quite sure how that represents. I think there is a way that the A-U Ma, there is something I had read about that one time, but I'm not sure of that, so I can't really answer that. Surendra says, is Drikdrishya hierarchy the same as the Panchakosha hierarchy? Let me understand what the word hierarchy means. No, they are parallel ways. If by hierarchy you mean the way of explaining, if that's what you mean, I think that's what you must mean. Uh, no, they are not. They are not subsets of each other. They are both parallel. So in Drikdrishya, it simply says Drikdrishya is the more fundamental of the way of explanation. Prakriya, you can say. Prakriya is the word that we use, which is the method of teaching. So Drikdrishya is a more fundamental prakriya because it talks about the overall aspect that we must think about, that there is a distinction between who I am and what I'm seeing. And how am I seeing it? So this is interesting how this proceeds. You know this already, but so the way it happens is there's 3 stages. Okay, 3 stages of understanding. The first stage is complete non-understanding, which means that I'm also part of seer and seen. The world is also part of seer and seen. It's just all one big ball of wax. The second one, the next one is there is a distinction between the seer and the seen. So this is where the first step of Dvaita comes in. And so this is a necessary step that you have to understand that the whole set of experiences consists of 2 elements, the seer and the seen. And as the Drikdishya Viveka points out, that you can say in that sense that the hierarchy is, you have the seer who is the eye, itself becomes the seen. But finally there comes a seer that can never be the seen, which is the Sakshi, right? So the Drikdishya Viveka, the Drikdishya way of looking at it is the more fundamental of the 2. Then the Panchakosha Viveka, where it is the Sthula Sharira and the Sukshma Sharira and the Karana Sharira and the Panch, all the koshas, is also another way of distinguishing from one reality to another reality. So that requires a different prakriya and is not as fundamental as the Drikdishya Viveka. That's the way I would explain that. Hopefully that's helpful to you. All right. Very good. Yep. We'll see you again. Hari Om.